Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all you inquisitive minds gathered around your sets. This is your friendly neighborhood sports announcer, stepping behind the microphone to bring you a tale that might leave a lump in your throat, a chill down your spine, or a thoughtful pause in your heart. Indeed, tonight we're not just talking about the home runs, slam dunks, or triumphant finishes that have captured our imaginations for generations. No, dear friends, we are setting our sights on the shadowy corners of the playing field, that dimly lit patch of our beloved sports universe where a different sort of game is played, one filled with whispered deals, cunning deception, and moral lines drawn in the shifting sands of greed. Yes, you heard right. We are about to venture into what we've come to call the dark side of sports, unmasking corruption in athletics. Let's be honest, when we cheer for our favorite team from the bleachers, or gather round that black and white television set for the big game, we rarely stop to consider that beyond the squeak of sneakers on hardwood, beyond the cheering masses and the bright stadium lights, there might be a hidden underworld pulling the strings. It's a world that many fans don't see or refuse to see, because sports for us is a land of heroes, of underdogs rising against the odds, of glorious feats that fill tomorrow's headlines and water cooler conversations. Yet behind that bright facade, we discover doping schemes, match-fixing conspiracies, bribery, gambling rings, and so much more. The tarnished trophies of these hidden operations cast a long shadow over the very purity we hold dear. In our time together over the next hour, to be precise, we're going to peel back the layers of secrecy that have stuck to the sporting world like old chewing gum under the stadium seats. We'll take you from the earliest civilizations, where athletic competitions were said to be pure and honorable, and discover that scandal found its way even into ancient chariot races. We'll follow the money trail that turned honest amateurs into well-compensated professionals, opening a Pandora's box of new temptations. We'll learn of doping doctors who promised superhuman strength to athletes hungry for gold, and hear from whistleblowers who risked everything to speak truth to power. But let me not get ahead of myself, folks. Before we plunge headlong into the labyrinth of greed, doping, and betrayal, let me ask you a question. What is it about sports that captivates us so? Think about it. Is it the thrill of watching a last-second touchdown or a buzzer-beater shot? Is it the inspiration we feel when we witness the triumph of the human spirit in times of adversity? Or perhaps, deep down, is it our longing for a sense of justice that the best competitor, the most dedicated, and the hardest working will ascend to the top, fair and square? If you're like me, then that sense of fairness, of playing by the rules, is at the very core of our appreciation for the athletic contest. That's precisely why corruption in sports is so disturbing. When corruption creeps in, the playing field is no longer level. Winners can be bought, performances can be scientifically engineered, entire competitions can be rigged. And so, from that first rumbling suspicion that something fishy was going on in a championship match, to the explosive revelations of doping networks in the highest tiers of international sport, we've all come to realize, sports are not immune to the darker impulses of human nature. I invite you now to come along with me, dear listener, on a journey both enlightening and sobering. The path we traverse may at times be uncomfortable, even disheartening. But in shining a light on wrongdoing, in unmasking those who twist and manipulate these games we hold dear, we open the door to reform, accountability, and, one would hope, a better future for all those who truly love the spirit of sport. So settle in, pour yourself a cup of coffee or your favorite beverage, and let us begin. My friends, what exactly do we mean by the dark side of sports? It's a phrase that conjures images of cloak-and-dagger espionage, of secret handshakes under a dim light, or perhaps an athlete hunched over a chemistry set late at night. And to be perfectly honest, these images aren't too far off the mark. When we talk about corruption in athletics, we're shining a beacon on a host of improper or illegal activities that manipulate the integrity of competition for personal, corporate, or political gain. In simpler terms, it's cheating, plain and simple. And we can see it wearing many faces: doping, bribery, match-fixing, nepotism, government interference, corporate manipulation, you name it. But the common thread is that in each case, the sporting event is no longer an honest measure of skill, athleticism, or hard work. Instead, it becomes a vehicle for profit, power, or prestige. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't clarify something about this dark side. Corruption in sports is not new. In fact, it's about as old as sports themselves. Why? If we flip through the pages of ancient history, we'll find that the earliest Olympians, back in the hallowed days of ancient Greece, were sometimes tempted to slip a few coins under the table or indulge in substances to enhance their performance. The more things change, as they say, the more they remain the same. As such, in the upcoming segments of our documentary, we'll take you back to those ancient times and reveal just how far back these underhanded tactics go. But the influence of money, technology, and global media has, in modern times, scaled these corrupt tendencies to astonishing heights. Consider the billions of dollars that flow through professional sports leagues these days, or the national pride that rests on the outcome of an Olympic medal. Whether it's the pressure to please sponsors, the allure of boosted TV ratings, or the schemes of organized crime rings that place massive bets on games, the stakes are stratospheric. When stakes are high, moral compasses can go astray, and that's precisely the phenomenon we're exploring. My goodness, folks, if only the roar of the crowd were enough. But for some, it's not just about the cheers, it's about the wallets, the political power, or the personal vendettas. We'll learn about doping networks that have churned out champions like assembly lines, about match-fixing conspiracies that turn entire tournaments into theatrical productions, and about the intangible heartbreak fans experience when they realize the contest they believed in was, in fact, scripted from the start. And that heartbreak, well, ladies and gentlemen, that heartbreak is what makes corruption in sports not merely a scandal or a curiosity but a problem that demands our attention. Sports hold a special place in our collective soul. They are a stage for heroism, for underdogs to have their day in the sun, for entire nations to unite under one banner. When you or I attend a ball game or tune in on the radio, we expect that the scoreboard is telling an honest story that the victory belongs to whoever played the best, overcame adversity, and left their sweat and soul on the field. But what happens when that trust is violated? What does it say about our values, our communal sense of fairness, and our shared desire for something pure to believe in? These aren't just lofty, philosophical musings. They affect real people, athletes who train every day to achieve their dreams, fans who pour their hearts and hard-earned money into their teams, communities that rely on sports for social and economic vitality. And that's precisely the tragedy. When corruption seeps in, everyone loses, except for those holding the puppet strings. In tonight's journey, we will examine this sobering truth in detail. But rest assured, it won't be all gloom. By shining a light into these dark corners, we offer hope. By confronting wrongdoing, we discover potential solutions. And by telling the stories of those who courageously fought back through whistleblowing, activism, or demands for accountability, we see the possibility of a sporting world that can correct its course. Yes, the revelations may be unsettling, but knowledge, dear friends, is the first step toward progress. Now, you may be wondering, just how are we going to unpack all of this? After all, the sports world is vast. It touches every continent, every culture, and every stratum of society. Corruption, in turn, weaves its way through that tapestry, appearing in different forms at different times. Well, folks, we have a structured path to guide us through the labyrinth. We'll start by hopping into our trusty time machine and going way back to ancient civilizations. Did you know that in ancient Greece, athletes used all manner of questionable substances, even then, to boost performance? And in ancient Rome, entire chariot races were decided by cunning cheats and backroom deals. We'll see how these historical seeds gave birth to the modern phenomenon we face today. We'll delve into the era when sports moved from casual pastime to big business, when the promise of professional wages, sponsorship deals, and global fame first tainted the purity of amateur competition. From there, our story marches forward through the ages, shining a light on how doping emerged not as a fringe tactic, but as a methodical, science-driven pursuit of victory at all costs. We'll recount the wide-eyed era of the 19th and early 20th centuries, when some athletes genuinely believed brandy or strychnine might give them a winning edge. And, folks, we'll discover how certain cunning con men planted the seeds of modern match fixing even before we had the neon lights and giant stadium screens we know today. That will bring us to the present day, a time when doping involves advanced laboratories, when entire governments sometimes provide hush money or manipulate entire sports organizations, and when the sums at stake are so large they boggle the mind. We'll uncover the doping doctors who transform the ability to cheat into an almost industrial enterprise. We'll explore how match fixing, bribery, and rigged draws have infiltrated some of the most prestigious competitions in the world of soccer, cricket, basketball, and beyond. But that's not all. We'll also see the human cost, the young athlete who faces a crossroads between doping or losing her lifelong dream, the fan whose spirit is crushed by the revelation that his hero is a fraud, or the community that places its hope in a local team only to discover the results were prearranged by sinister forces with no stake in the local pride. Corruption in sports is not a victimless crime, it carries heartbreak in its wake. Yet, dear listeners, heartbreak isn't the only legacy. There's also the determination of the whistleblowers who risked it all, their reputations, their careers, sometimes their personal safety to reveal wrongdoing. We'll hear stories of these brave souls, who saw beyond the scoreboard and recognized that justice, honesty, and fairness had to prevail. Their testimonies, combined with investigative journalism and the power of public outrage, have begun to turn the tide in some corners of the sports world. So, how exactly will we journey through these revelations? In our next segment, appropriately called Historical Foundations of Corruption in Sports, we'll unearth the roots of dishonesty that sprouted in ancient arenas. We'll then march through history, exploring how unscrupulous gamblers and cunning players shaped the rules or broke them long before doping labs or million-dollar sponsorships ever existed. You see, by understanding the past, we can more clearly see the patterns that repeat in modern sports. Once we establish this historical backbone, we'll segue into what might be the most eye-opening portion of our documentary, the modern-day scandals. From the doping fiascos that have rocked the cycling world and the track and field realm to the labyrinthine world of match-fixing in global soccer, this middle chapter will show us how deep the rabbit hole goes in our own lifetimes.